God, kindle thou in my heart within a flame of love to my neighbor, to my foe, to my friend, to my kindred all, to the brave, to the knave, to the thrall, from the lowliest thing that liveth to the name that is highest of all. Some traditional Gaelic words to light our chalice. Good morning. Thank you for joining me in person and hopefully online. Due to a technical glitch, we couldn't have the online worship last week, so I'm hoping that things are back in order this week. And for those, obviously, who are here in person, I'm grateful for your presence as well. Whatever it is that you're looking for in this space, it might be time for celebration and laughter. It might be time for tears and sorrow, some repose. Maybe you've come looking for a few words of wisdom or a chance to connect with one another, or just simply to rest in the silence with the divine. Whatever it is that's brought you into this space, I hope you'll find it, and I know that you'll find a warm community. So we had those Gaelic words to light our chalice. We turn now to enter a bit deeper into worship with these words of Barbara Wells. O spinner, weaver of our lives, your loom is love. May we who are gathered here be empowered by that love. to weave new patterns of truth and justice into a web of life that is strong, beautiful, and everlasting. Amen. And please join with me in singing our first hymn in the Purple Book, Alicia Carpenter's Here We Have Gathered, number 62. One of the joys, I believe, in our faith and in our worship is this capacity to draw. I was going to say transfer, but sort of draw, I suppose, different meanings from various elements. So we have this capacity to, for instance, read poetry and philosophy with a spiritual lens. Today's prayer, as it's been described, a prayer, is by Nancy Schaefer, who is a UU minister. She was a poet as well, and an author in Instructions in Joy, which is a form of meditations. And I've read this out before, but most of the time when I've read it, it's been classed as a reading. But it works very well, I think, as a prayer as well, which is why it's placed at this point in our service today. So this is Because We Spill Not Only Milk by the Reverend Nancy Schaefer. Because we spill not only milk, knocking it over with an elbow when we reach to wipe a small face, but also spill seed on soil we thought was fertile but isn't, and also spill whole lives, and only later see in fading light how much is gone and we hadn't intended it. Because we tear not only cloth, thinking to find a true edge and instead making only a hole, but also tear friendships when we grow, and mountainsides, because we are so many and we want to live right where black oaks lived, once very quiet and still.
because we forget not only what we are doing in the kitchen and have to go back to the room we were in before, remember why it was we left, but also forget entire lexicons of joy and how we lost ourselves for hours, yet all that time were clearly found and held. And also forget the hungry not at our table. Because we weep, not only at jade plants caught in freeze and precious papers left in rain, but also at legs that no longer walk, or never did, although from the outside they look like most others. And also weep at words said once as though they might be rearranged, but which, once loose, refuse to return, and we are helpless. Because we are imperfect and love so deeply, we will never have enough days. We need the gift of starting over, beginning again, just this constant good, this saving hope. Amen. And please read with me our covenant, which you'll find printed in your order of worship. We gather here in sacred fellowship to witness the fullness of our lives and all life, to hold and be held, tell stories and listen, to be renewed and renew the world. We speak with care and patience. We act with gentleness and compassion. We forgive each other and ourselves. In faith that we build beloved community, we renew our covenant today. Amen. Who here has heard of Shel Silverstein, by any chance? He was a very popular poet when I was growing up, primarily a children's poet, though, as I hope we've learned by having sort of stories and poetry in our services, that we know that even if something is marked as being for children, it can be just as applicable, if not even more important, for adults to hear as well. Anyway, so Shel Silverstein wrote a number of sort of books, poetry, absolutely wonderful. We very often, if we had to memorize something in school, it would be one of the first poets that we would turn to. So this is Hector the Collector, and very unfortunately I don't have the actual copy with me. He also included lots of illustrations to the poems, so we don't have that today, I'm afraid, but we do have his wonderful words. This is, as I say, Hector the Collector. Hector the Collector collected bits of string, collected dolls with broken heads and rusty bells that would not ring, bent up nails and ice cream sticks, twists of wires, worn out tires, paper bags and broken bricks, old chip vases, half shoelaces, Gatling guns that wouldn't shoot, leaky boats that wouldn't float, and stopped up horns that wouldn't toot, butter knives that had no handles, copper keys that fit no locks, rings that were too small for fingers, dried up leaves and patched up socks, worn out belts that had no buckles, electric trains that had no tracks, airplane models, broken bottles, three-legged chairs and cups with cracks. Hector the Collector loved these things with all his soul, loved them more than shining diamonds, loved them more than glittering gold. Hector called to all the people, "Come and share my treasure trunk." And all the silly, sightless people came and looked and called it junk. A bit of a twist at the ending. So you have a chance to share your joys and your sorrows, and I promise we will not call them junk. Whatever you have in your life, your trials and your triumphs. And if you want to light a candle, please do so. If you have a few words to say, come to the microphone, so those online, those using the loop system will be able to hear you. You can, of course, light a candle in silence, or if you wish to remain seated, holding your life in your heart, know that your presence here is enough. So I'm going to light one candle, but with two meanings to it, one joy and one sorrow. The sorrow is, I learned just yesterday about the death of the Reverend Patrick O'Neill, he was an American minister, I think primarily based in Boston, but he did spend a few years here around the time of my training. And I heard him preach very powerfully at a conference about 12 or 13 years ago. It was also, interestingly enough, at that conference that I first heard the Nancy Schaefer piece. So it was sort of a bit of a coincidence that this all sort of came together that way. So it's a candle of sorrow, but a gratitude as well for the life and ministry that he had. It's also going to be a candle for Thomas, who's a little unwell today, but he's also going to a birthday party. So we're sort of quite excited about that.
It's just a candle for my second cousin, Jonathan. He lives on his own and he's recently been in hospital with a bad back, and apparently now he has an abscess. So it's just for him, because he's on his own, that things will get better soon.
For all those joys and sorrows here spoken.
those that remain silently in our hearts. Let us turn now to our second hymn, this time in the Green Book, number 161, Linda Carroll Morrison's The Sun of Hope Within, hymn number 161. Our second reading today comes from Sophia Léon-Faz, who is an editor, author, teacher, and religious activist who led a revolution in the Unitarian religious education in the 20th century. It matters what we believe. Some beliefs are like walled gardens. They encourage exclusiveness and feelings of being especially privileged. Other beliefs are expansive and lead the way into wider and deeper sympathies. Some beliefs are like shadows, clouding children's days with fears of unknown calamities. Other beliefs are like sunshine, blessing children with the warmth of happiness. Some beliefs are divisive, separating the saved from the unsaved, friends from enemies. Other beliefs are like bonds in world community, where sincere differences beautify the pattern. Some beliefs are like blinders, shutting off the power to choose one's own direction. Other beliefs are like gateways, opening wide vistas for exploration. Some beliefs weaken a person's selfhood. They blight the growth of resourcefulness. Other beliefs nurture self-confidence and enrich the feeling of personal worth. Some beliefs are rigid, like the body of death, impotent in a changing world. Other beliefs are pliable, like the young sapling, ever growing with the upward thrust of life. Some Beliefs by Sophia Léon-Faz. Let us turn again to a time of prayer.
magnificent provider. In our worship today and all days, we seek to know you, sometimes alone, sometimes amongst others. Each expression of love, each act of faith, becomes another brick in the edifice of our church, that which is built in our hearts and in our communities. What church will we build? Will we seek for people to proclaim a uniform opinion, voicing one singular dogma as the eternal truth, infallible, though created through compromise and human failings? Or will we seek a unity of spirit, banded together through a common search for the divine and an appreciation of our shared humanity? Who will we welcome? Will we encourage only those who fit our mold of worthiness, who conform to our clique, who affirm their religious experience through the derising of others? Or will our doors be open to all who seek to know, to feel, to each person who needs shelter from the vagaries of human life, those who are frail, weary from trotting the ill-taken path for so long, those who need to rest in the gentle embrace of the divine? What are our concerns? Will we be dismayed by the differences we encounter in religious practice and thought? Or will we seek to help everyone express their desires and hopes, their fears and anxieties? How will we tend our garden? Will we tear beautiful weeds, different only by name, up by their root, for fear they will overrun our pasture? Or will we accept all that grows and throw our seed to the wind, that it may be carried by the grace of God, with the faith that will land on fertile ground? May we not expect conformity from the workings of the Spirit. Just as there is a diversity of creation, may there be a diversity of paths towards the divine. May our worship today and all days nurture, support, and embrace the world, humanity, as well as ourselves. Amen. And so let us enter into a period of silence for reflection, meditation, contemplation, and personal prayer. Again. Let us join in singing our next hymn, number 65 in the Purple Book, Ruth Duck's How Good It Is, What Pleasure Comes, hymn number 65. Do you have any items in your life that you just couldn't possibly part with? Even things that are perhaps broken, if they don't work, and they likely never will. My parents, when I was growing up, had a beautiful grandfather clock. I think it has been a wedding present for them. But it had broken, I think, quite early on. So it didn't, it didn't tick, it didn't talk, the bells didn't chime, the weights didn't go down. I don't think it has sounded in decades since, though I believe they still have it, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I used to look at it, imagining those weights pulling down, those elegant hands making their way around the clock face, the bells and the chimes ringing every quarter hour. Some things are often too dear, too sentimental, or too beautiful to easily forego. I think we hear this in Hector the Collector. Shel Silverstein, as I said, was popular for me and my classmates growing up. Anytime we had to memorize a few lines of verse, you could count on at least one, if not many, and if not most, choosing Shel Silverstein. His poems and goofy drawings can sometimes pack a punch, just like we heard at that end. After detailing all of these items in a rich and captivating imagery, after noting how dear that they were to Hector, we're suddenly thrown out of the poem, noting that everyone else has perceived them to be junk. And as a side note, I have to point out that we've been having a massive clear out at Coyne. So a lot of the items that Hector would have loved have been sent on their way from our own house. Some have been, rehoused and donated, though the exercise makes me feel a little bit like a hypocrite reading that poem and reflecting upon it. Anyway, for Hector, those items weren't junk. They were beautiful, just like that grandfather clock, just like anything you might have in your home or your life that perhaps has lacked its initial usefulness. It still remains with you for some reason. There's a lot of words extolling the beauty of the broken. We might begin with those of Leonard Cohen's, ones I've read here before. Ring bells that still can ring, forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything, that's how the light gets in. Or we might reflect on the words of Augustine of Hippo, noting that our true perfection is to find out our imperfection. Or maybe it's the Indian actress Sonam Kapoor that we turn to. I think every single imperfection adds to your beauty. Again, to develop a self-love that can encompass our humanness, to embrace it not just in some tolerable way, but to see it as an integral part of our being, part of us. I might focus on the Nigerian-British poet Ben Okri. Where there is perfection, there is no story to tell. I saw a documentary not too long ago about the comedian and writer Harper Steele, who had just come out as a trans woman. She traveled the country with her close friend and well-known celebrity Will Ferrell, who served as a buffer and a support for her as she sought to occupy both her gender and the rustic and rural and very often conservative countryside that she loved growing up. It was part of her being in her childhood and young adulthood of traveling around the country, going to these sort of dive bars and sort of what people sort of dismiss as being the junk and the dinginess. She thrived on that, and she wanted to explore it and to be accepted for who she was, but she didn't feel safe. Before I saw this documentary, though, I'd read some reviews and there was some criticism of it, namely that Will Ferrell treats things like a bit of a joke, and that at one point he actually endangers Harper, sort of due to this. So I watched the documentary with a certain level of skepticism in my mind. Firstly, regarding the claim that he jokes too much, he's a comedian. Of course, he's going to be looking for the humor in these circumstances. But you soon realize when you're watching this that some of his humor in the documentary, I'm not necessarily saying about his professional life, but in this documentary, some of his humor is a means of coping through uncomfortable and unfamiliar circumstances. When things become awkward, his strange and goofy side becomes more and more visible. You can tell this because it often comes out in sort of a very cringe sort of way, as the children say. Though it was a bit endearing to me as I watched it. But that second issue, that he unwittingly put Harper in a position of danger, was even more compelling for me to reflect on. Because afterwards, the next day, as they're driving through Texas, Harper's relaying about how unsafe she felt that previous night. And Will Ferrell acknowledges this. And for the first time, he becomes quite tearful. He does this, he cries, as the full weight of his actions becomes clear. Which then, of course, leads to a real heart-to-heart between them, with Will Ferrell beginning to understand Harper's life and the complexities that it brings. This, for me, illustrates Okri's words beautifully and vindicates the documentary. We cannot expect Ferrell to be this perfect and perfectly informed ally. We need to see him grow, which means we need to see him make mistakes. He needs to be incomplete in that first act so that he can find what is missing in the second and he can integrate it in the third. Were he to take every step perfectly from the get-go, there would be no learning, there would be no growth. There would be no growth for us either, as we would miss that process of getting from one step to another. There'd be no development, no story. With perfection, there is no story to tell. Years ago, I was at a conference which included a conversation from several artists. Although it was a religious conference, the organizer had brought in these artists who were unaffiliated with any particular faith, though they were familiar with Unitarianism. One noted that the church should be a place for imperfection. She commented on how society demands so much from us. Doing more, doing better, being perfect. There was little room for error, and she thought the church needed to be this place where people could come, they could acknowledge their imperfection before having to return to that fast-paced and exhausting world. At the time, I agreed with the sentiment wholeheartedly, although there was also a certain anxiety for myself. If we are immersed in a perfection-oriented culture that demands so much of us, what is the position of the worship leader on Sunday? Can imperfection be expected of them as well? I certainly hope so. Can they write an order of worship that includes the word semron instead of sermon? For those who noted it. I certainly hope so. I joke a bit, but there is always a strand of truth. It is a bit of an anxiety of mine to think that some imperfection that I enact in a service may mar it for newcomers, particularly, who choose to leave after a single sitting. You who are members and regular attendees have no excuse for coming week after week. Thank you. So the stress that we encounter in the week risks running over into the weekend as well. I suspect this belief that the Sunday service has to be perfect is unhelpful. Our second reading, Some Beliefs by Sophia Léon-Faz, compares the beliefs that people hold to gardens. We might liken some closed-off beliefs to those of a walled garden, for instance. A few weeks ago, I read a similar excerpt by the Victorian minister John Hamilton Thom, differing between unity of spirit and uniformity of opinion, and definitely encouraging us to choose that first option. Faz was an early 20th century educator who contributed immeasurably to the education of Unitarian children. And I think this reading is an apt understanding of how consequential our beliefs are. The reading about beliefs is salient because, just like a garden, our beliefs have to be watered. What we experience and how we respond, shape, and direct our beliefs just as flowers, under the right circumstances of rain, soil, and sunshine, will flourish. Our beliefs as well will direct our actions. Like the cycle of growth and decay, our life is woven by intersecting events and thoughts. And just like every flower, its uniqueness and imperfections may make it even more beautiful. So let us be perfectly imperfect, embodying our bodies fully with all the realities that defy the beauty magazines. Let us recognize that life is not just some collection of integrated systems, but is an experience that we are living through with our stories and development and mistakes and amends. Let us welcome people as they are tired of this world with its expectations. Amen. A few notices. I was going to say I'll skip over the normal ones because I think everyone here is a regular attendee. We have quite a few various things that you can sign up for in the Percival Suite for our tea and coffee. One is our directory. We'll be bringing this out about the time of the AGM. So if you wish to be included, please fill it out. Only people who agree to sort of have some of their details in it will receive a copy of it. That's the sort of contract, if you will, that ensures it's sort of a safe exercise for us. And so you opt into it, and then you'll only receive it if you choose to opt into it. We also have sort of image release forms because we want to be doing some bit more sort of promotion with pictures of very happy, smiling, friendly people, as you all are. But we need your permission to do so. So please do fill those in. We have our Gaskell tour is Saturday, April the 5th, I think, at 2:30. Please sign up for that. We do have, there's more, we have enough so that we are definitely going. We've reached over the minimum, but we're definitely under the maximum. So if you haven't signed up yet and are interested, please do sign up. And then we have March 16th, 4 weeks from today, we have our AGM. Please do sign up to bring a dish for our Bring and Share. Consider signing up for the committee if you wish. As I've said before, this service we will be welcoming our fellows from around the country who are members of the National Executive Council will be with us. We'll be able to say a few words and perhaps take a few questions. So we want to make it sort of as wonderful and boisterous a welcome to them as we can as well. So please do sign up for any and all of those. Do we have anyone to help with tea and coffee today? Thank you, Richard and Emma. And our lunchtime recital is Friday the 28th. It's the Spore Nanette. It's featuring international performers from the Halle and Royal Northern College of Music. That's the 28th at 1 p.m. It's free, but we're grateful for any contributions which go to the artists to recognize their time, talent, and energy. Well, let us then sing our final hymn, number 68 in the Purple Book, Kate Compton's I Dream of a Church, hymn number 68. And for setting up and greeting. Thank you, Alvin, for the IT, and to Richard and Emma for the tea and coffee we're about to enjoy. And thank you to everyone for creating and sharing worship today. We close with these words of Kenneth Patton. In far-off times, others will put their carvings beside yours and light candles where yours long ago burned away. In their celebrations, there will be a lingering of your questions and solicitations. The rafters and pillars will remember your dreams, and your children will discover the beauty of your ancient hands.